The Phoenix flat was less a home and more a mausoleum, a monument to a life Vikrant Sharma had tried to bury. Dust motes danced in the sunlight, each one a ghost of a forgotten memory. Vikrant ran a hand over his father's old briefcase. The lock rusted shut. He jimmied it open with a paperclip, patience honed in rooms where threats replaced pleasantries. Inside, legal documents, blueprints, and a faded photograph of a family on barren land. His land, now buried under Dolores concrete. Vikrant spread the documents across the table. Property deeds, survey maps, letters refusing to sell. His father's signature, bold and defiant on every page. This wasn't a story of loss, it was theft. A bitter laugh escaped Vikrant. He'd defended criminals, yet missed the crime against his own family. The city outside hummed with progress, but in this flat, a funeral dirge for a lie began to play. He picked up the photograph again. His father proud, his mother smiling, himself a boy who believed in fairness. That boy was gone. Now, justice wasn't given, it was taken. The pieces were all here, a crime scene frozen in time. The city could have its drones and data, but the oldest crimes were always the simplest. Greed, power, betrayal. Vikrant Sharma, former mafia lawyer, knew how to navigate that world. The ghost in the machine wasn't digital. It was his father's spirit, demanding a reckoning. He looked from the photo to the blueprints, then to the legal papers. The hunt for truth had begun. For Vikrant, motivation was no longer money or power. It was the ghost of his father, a man he'd misunderstood. The briefcase told a new story, a fighter who stood his ground with ink and conviction. This wasn't just about land, it was about reclaiming a name, rewriting a history forced upon them. Dolores towers were built on soil that should have been his. Justice was no abstraction, it was a fire in his gut, burning away years of cynicism. He wanted to tear down the city's shiny facade and expose the rot beneath. He remembered his father's slumped shoulders, the light in his eyes dimming after the land was gone. Vikrant had resented him for it. Now he understood the weight of a battle lost in the shadows. He wasn't just fighting for property, he was fighting for the boy in the photograph, for the right to be proud. The flat became his war room, survey maps pinned to the wall, lines drawn, dots connected. The lost legacy wasn't about money, it was about truth. The world saw Dolores as the future. Vikrant saw a crime scene. His motivation was simple: family, truth, and the satisfaction of watching the powerful fall. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. They had their digital crowbar. Now it was time to break the door down. The evidence was there, hidden in plain sight. The city's digital armor had a fatal flaw. Vikrant and Amar were ready to exploit it. The hunt for justice had gone online. The past was about to collide with the future. The truth was no longer buried. It was about to be unleashed.
And we just got the Phantom's address.
On the screen, a scanned deed flickered into view. The signature was a crude forgery. The buyer, a shell corporation, a ghost company. Vikrant whispered, cold anger settling in. They didn't just buy the land, they created a phantom to do their dirty work.
Got it. They migrated the old records to a legacy server. Sloppy.
Every fortress has a crack. Systems are built by humans, and humans make mistakes. The plan hacked the Dolores land registry, find the original records, prove the sale was fraudulent. Every keystroke was a step into a minefield. One wrong move, and they'd be caught.
The land records are digitized, locked behind government firewalls. It's a fortress.
To fight a smart city, you need a smart weapon. Vikrant knew the law, but the new battlefield was digital. That's where Amar came in. A digital phantom, brilliant and distrustful of authority. They met in a dingy internet cafe. Vikrant laid out the blueprints and deeds. Amar saw the ultimate hack. The lines were drawn. The corporate machine versus one man and his father's briefcase. The battle for Dolores' soul had begun. The past was coming for the present, and Vikrant was leading the charge.
Handle it. Mira, tie him up in court. Raj, make sure he understands the consequences.
The CEO, Mr. Chauhan, stared out at the city. He'd been there in 1999. He knew what was buried under their tower. The conspiracy was simple. Create a shell company, forge a signature, launder the land. Now, The ghost of that crime had returned.
Nothing is ever buried deep enough. Not with a man like him.
The 1999 acquisition? I thought that was buried deep.
Vikrant Sharma, former syndicate counsel. He's asking questions. He's hired a hacker.
The corporate world wasn't so different from the mafia, just better dressed. In Ravex's boardroom, Mira briefed the team.
Some things are better left buried, Mr. Sharma, for your own health.
Ravex Infratech ruled Dolera from a glass tower, looking down on the city they built. News of Vikrant's inquiries traveled fast. The first response, a cease and desist letter, signed by Mira Singh, Ravex's ruthless head of legal. Vikrant laughed. He'd written letters like this himself. It was intimidation, nothing more. The next contact was a call from Raj, the company's fixer. His father looked at the land. This land is not for sale. It belongs to my son, and his son after him. Vikrant, then a teenager, was embarrassed. Why not take the money? The executive's smile vanished. That is a mistake. After that, everything changed. Legal notices, surveyors, whispers in the village. The weight crushed his father. Months later, they were evicted. The official story, his father sold and gambled it away. But Vikrant now knew the truth. His father never sold. He was broken. The memory was no longer shame. It was fuel. Vikrant finally understood his father's stand. It wasn't about dirt, it was about dignity. The past was clear now, and Vikrant was ready to fight for it.
Mr. Sharma, this is progress. You cannot stand in the way of the future.
The memory hit Vikrant in flashes. 1999, men in suits, promises of a smart city. Neighbors sold their land for cash and dreams. But his father, Ramnarayan Sharma, refused. The final meeting was under the old banyan tree. A young Mr. Chauhan, now CEO, tried to charm him. Mira tried to discredit him, but the judge listened. Vikrant had turned Ravex's digital strength into a weakness. The court began to question the very nature of evidence in a smart city. The battle was far from over, but Vikrant had shifted the ground beneath Ravex's feet. The fight for justice was alive.
Digital records can be altered. Legacy data can be hidden. Sometimes what you see isn't what was there.
Mira objected at every turn, trying to drown him in procedure. But Vikrant was patient, planting seeds of doubt. He filed motions, requested records, buried Ravex in paperwork. The key moment. Amar testified as a cybersecurity consultant.
Hearsay, Your Honor. Irrelevant. Speculation.
The courtroom was a theater where truth and lies wore the same suits. Ravex's lawyers, led by Mira Singh, faced Vikrant, alone, but in his element. Justice Menon presided, unreadable. Vikrant's evidence, old documents, a forged signature, a phantom company. Vikrant's heart leaped. The court approved a limited excavation. Under the watchful eyes of lawyers and clerks, a backhoe dug. After an hour, the bucket struck something solid. Workers cleared the earth, revealing a slab of carved stone. The engraved letters were unmistakable. The past was about to speak. The truth was rising from the ground, and everyone was watching.
Wait, there's something there. Stone or concrete?
The legal battle sent ripples through the city. Media circled. Ravex's image wavered. Vikrant knew the real truth was in the ground. Armed with survey maps and a court order, he hired a team with ground-penetrating radar. They focused on a garden at Ravex's campus, the exact center of his ancestral land. The radar hummed through the night. Raj and his security watched, unable to interfere. Hours passed. Then, the stone was a time capsule. The inscription, Sharma Township, established 1999, Ramnarayan Sharma proprietor. Below, from these roots a future grows. It was his father's dream, buried by his enemies. The silence was profound. Even Ravex's lawyers were stunned. Vikrant traced his father's name, grief and pride washing over him. His father wasn't a failure, he was a visionary. The blueprints were plans for a future stolen. The foundation stone was a bombshell. Undeniable proof Ravex's claim was built on a lie. The story exploded in the news. The symbol was too powerful to ignore. Ravex's empire was built on a buried dream. The public turned. Mira and Raj watched their world crumble. For Vikrant, it was vindication beyond legal victory. He had unearthed the truth and given his father's story back to him. The real foundation for the future was finally revealed. Raj's intimidation turned personal. Vikrant knew the risks. There were still unanswered questions. The shell company, the forged signature, the deeper conspiracy. Dollara was built on a web of lies. Vikrant had only pulled one thread. To get true justice, he'd have to unravel it all. Vikrant stood on his balcony, looking at Dollara's lights. He saw the cracks in its facade. The fight was no longer just about his family. It was about everyone's stolen history. The war for Dollara's soul had just begun. From the ashes of the past, something new was rising, and it was him.
He's getting too close. Make sure he understands the consequences.
The foundation stone was a victory, but just one battle in a longer war. Ravex, wounded, would fight harder. Mira would use every legal trick. The case would drag on for years. Justice in India is a marathon, not a sprint. The threats escalated. Break-ins, late-night calls, cars following too close.